What's up, guys? Hope you're having a fantastic week so far. Once again, we guys are Warhammer video. We're looking at the Tau versus the Covenant, which I thought was pretty cool. So I'm a big Halo fan and been loving some Warhammer content. So I thought it was a nice little blend together. It's really interesting though because I feel like they're pretty similar in overall like technology and just kind of like who they are. I mean, of course, the Covenant is an elite zealot, crazy group of faction, basically like the Imperium. The Tau was like, well, just a Tau. They're an up and coming faction. You think almost like a humanity, in the Hill universe. So it's definitely interesting. I believe the Tau would just win just because of it's just Warhammer. Let's just be honest. Like think of the most ridiculously stupid, overpowered shit and multiply it by 4 plus 6, and then you got the Warhammer universe. That's not to say the Covenant won't do a really good fight because their warriors and their overall just quality of troop is much different than the Tau. The Tau is strictly just like the Tau people themselves, not like any third party entities, really like their fighting force. Because remember we learned in a few videos back, and of course the Covenant, they have like grunts, jackals, elite, brutes, and so on and so forth. So it'd be definitely a interesting video, and I'm looking forward to it. But like always, please check out the original video in the description. Make sure you show them some love. If you guys enjoy my content and if you guys enjoy my reactions, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get to it.
Hey guys and gal, doing setting comparisons is always fun, and with Halo being the game series I grew up
Love
on and
Halo,
Warhammer
bro.
being Warhammer, it's awesome that I can bring the two together for a video. However, unlike a normie video, like could Halo beat Warhammer 40k, spoiler, Halo would get stomped without a second thought,
Yeah.
it wouldn't even be close, I thought let's get a bit more realistic and compare the Covenant to the Tau. Both are confederations of alien species working together towards a common goal, both wage war against humanity.
But that's fair. It's like Halo in its own right is very powerful. Like the UNSC and all that is very powerful. But Warhammer, even if you balance out the technology, even though Warhammer's so much farther into the future, if you balance out the technology, Warhammer just has so many people. Like for the Imperium, they just have such a large variety of just people that they could just throw at you, that the odds of the UNSC running out of ammo is much higher than the Imperium running out of actual just people. And I'm not including the special forces. I'm not including the Primarchs. I'm not including the Space Marines. Like they just have such a shit ton of people that just not matter. I mean, shit. You just take one Imperium soldier, you pump him with a bunch of drugs and throw him in a front line. He'll take like a shit ton of rounds and just blow himself up or whatever, and just take out something. It's just the Imperium is just, they just have so many people. Like their scaling is just nuts. It's nuts.
Both are more technologically
Nuts.
advanced than humanity, and both have way too much Rule 34. But who would win if
Yep.
the two factions fought? Who has the greater warriors, more warriors, deadlier weapons, and so on? It's an interesting question that I intend to answer. Before we get started, I'm gonna let you in a bit of a life hack. The more time you can save on essential but tedious tasks sends your cleanup as you can even catch. There literally is none box as the factor for sponsoring this video. Today we'll compare and contrast the Covenant from Halo with the Tau from Warhammer 40k to see which alien gangbang fucks the hardest. We'll also pit them in
It's kinda weird like that, dude.
happen. I want to note, I'll be comparing the Covenant at their absolute peak power prior to the Flood, the Banished, or even their war against humanity. Let's get into it. The best way to go about this is to break it down into sections and then compare them one by one. So first, starting us off with the quality of each faction's warriors. A massive strength for the Covenant is their huge variety of warriors, making them extremely difficult to adapt
Brutes and
to.
elites
They
are
have
crazy,
grunts and
bro.
shield jackals as fodder, backed up by hardy elites, brutes, and the devastating hunters. On top of that, they then have their jackal snipers, Yanmei flying bugs for aerial skirmishing.
Anyone who's ever played, I think it was Halo 3 on Legendary, knows about Jackal Snipers at, or it was ODST, I can't remember exactly. But them Jackal Snipers are not pushovers, dude. They are crazy.
Amongst many others, not to mention their prophets and other support troops. The Tau, on the other hand, despite having dozens of alien species in their empire, pretty much solely rely on themselves for combat, with the occasional use of human and crude auxiliaries. Now this doesn't make the Tau one-dimensional, they have their battle suits after all, but the Covenant definitely have way more warrior diversity. In terms of their quality, a Tau fire warrior would be superior to a grunt or even a jackal shield warrior, but a Covenant elite would fuck up a
Mm-hmm.
Tau Fire Warrior. They are just significantly
Faster,
stronger and faster than a
stronger,
human, with
potentially
their
even
warrior
smarter
culture
because of
making
battle
them
IQ.
supremely powerful units. An energy sword would slice through a Fire Warrior like a 9,000-degree knife through a 5-year-old. Not to mention the Tau suck even more shit at melee than a human, so an elite going invisible then appearing amongst the Tau lines with an energy sword would slaughter the shit out of them. Now the Tau battlesuits definitely level the playing field here, but the elites are a rank and file soldier whilst the battlesuits are an expensive specialty unit. I do also believe that hunters would be able to destroy battlesuits with their assault cannons, as well as the fact that their shields weigh 2 tons and are designed to be immune to plasma or ballistic weaponry. A hunter would easily crush a battlesuit with a single hit. Now if we start looking at vehicles, it gets even spicier. The Covenant have some cool shit, wraiths, banshees, ghosts, phantoms, but the Tau have railguns, and railguns are overpowered as shit. A single shot of a Tau railgun would destroy most Covenant tanks or ships, and whilst the Covenant Scarab is a beast of a machine, especially the mega-sized versions, the Tau would find taking them out to be pretty easy. They would quickly identify its weakness, that being the core of it, after a few engagements, and would simply just send 5 or so battlesuits to jump at it and land directly near the weak spot. Then while most of them engaged the Scarab's crew, 1 or 2 would take out the core in no time.
See, the thing that's a little tricky about that too is there's also a lot of troops on the Scarab as well. It's like the Scarab isn't just its own entity. Like there's a whole bunch of troops on there. It'd be tricky to take it over. I mean, I think the battlesuits could definitely take it down, but it won't be just like, oh, they go in there, bang, bang, pow, you know, it's dead. Like it would be a battle. Like a Scarab is not something you can just easily take out. But I would say by a good 7 out of 10 times, the battlesuits would definitely take it down with mid to low difficulty.
As for Tau super units, the Manta is a beast and some of their battlesuits are huge, like the Supremacy Armor. I can't really imagine many things in the Covenant ground forces that could take out a Manta or Supremacy Armor. They would need to orbitally laser strike these targets to take them out reliably. Speaking of orbital,
that shit looks so cool, bro. Like that's just so badass.
I'm not a
looking.
sci-fi spaceship engineer, so I'm not gonna fucking count gun ports or the kilowatt of each faction's energy shields or whatever. I'm just a caveman, so I'll look at raw firepower and ship size. A Covenant capital ship is generally about 5 kilometers long and features a titload of laser beams of all different varieties, including their Infernus pattern super heavy excavation beams, which is what they use to glass
they
planets.
eat railgun
But they
rounds
also
too,
have
man.
many orbital weapons and lasers capable of tearing through ships' armor without issue. These capital ships are supported by battle cruisers that are about 1.8 kilometers long. There is a ton more support ships, but these battle cruisers are the most common right-hand man to the capital ships. The Tau probably have the smallest ships in all of Warhammer 40k, mostly because they didn't need big ships until they encountered the Imperium, and also their tactics don't revolve around 1700s golden age of pirate era shit. They are all about long-range skirmishing, maneuverability, and under no circumstances do they fucking ram other spaceships. It's hard to find exact Tau ship sizing, but from what I've read, the 5 kilometer mark actually suits them pretty well also, with many smaller support craft to back them up. I do believe they also have a few gigaships that get up to about 10 kilometers, but don't quote me on that. The Tau generally just don't really get into those dick measuring contests. They don't see a purpose of building a Giga Leviathan ship because it'll be slow and a big target. They would rather just swarm you. During the Horus Heresy, capital ships were a big thing. Each fleet would specifically target the other's hero ships to win the battle. The Tau don't have that weakness. However, this does mean that they often get fucked by Space Marine ships due to the aggressive nature of those ships countering the more careful Tau tactics. I do also need to mention the Covenant Supercarrier, which measures 30 kilometers long, which is fucking big. Much larger than anything the Tau would have. A space battle between the Tau and the Covenant would be a shitload of long-range lasers ripping into each other, whilst thousands of attack craft are launched. The Covenant would also attempt numerous boarding actions against the Tau ships. I do also need to talk about each faction's faster than light tech. Even though apparently the Tau can now warp jump sort of, I think it's a bit sketchy, so let's just refer to their short range warp skimming. The Tau Empire is small mostly because they struggle to travel very far at any sort of real speed. Their faster than light is shit because they don't have navigators and their tech isn't as good as the Necrons yet. As such, the Tau using their faster than light to surprise the enemy and emerge at their flank in a space battle is unheard of. Compare this to the Covenant, who use slip space tech, which actually does work in a similar way to warp travel, i.e. tearing a hole into a different dimension and flying through it. But that dimension isn't hell and it isn't full of demons and shit.
Yes,
so
that's
slip
fair.
space is generally faster and safer than warp travel whilst also being more accurate. For
You
example,
need
the
to sacrifice
UNSC
people
Infinity
either.
was able to
Do it.
slipstream directly into the flank of a Covenant ship and destroy it via ramming. And UNSC slipstream tech is below that of the Covenant. So in terms
Now, to be fair, what's going on right now when they ram them, that's like your basic Covenant cruiser, and that's like the largest ship, the Infinity that the UNSC in humanity's like ever produced, if I remember correctly. So it's like, yeah, they're gonna ram that one, but it's like you can't just simply just ram the Covenant cruiser. But if you're in the Infinity, you can, because look at that. I mean, that is a big ass ship. But if your ship's big enough, yes, you could. Like, if this was the Imperium, then yes, they could ram them. The Tau, no, no, because I mean, no.
In terms of faster
I don't see it
travel, the
working too well,
Covenant would
man.
definitely have a clear advantage. Let's now check out the technology level on the two sides. The Tau and Covenant are actually quite similar with their love
Yeah,
of
I'll say
energy-based
they're very
weaponry over
similar.
the ballistic weaponry that humanity in both their settings employ. They both have
Just
laser
the
guns,
warriors of the
plasma
Covenant are
weapons,
so
and whatnot.
diverse,
The Covenant have a few wild
specialized.
cards like their needler tech creating focused micro-explosions and their plasma pistols being able to EMP machines for a short moment, but then again so do the Tau, who have ion weaponry and even employ the use of flamethrowers on occasion. The Elite's energy shielding would give them a huge advantage in a fight against the Tau, allowing them to close the gap and get into melee, with the Covenant's long-range firepower also being pretty decent in the form of Jackal snipers, as well as Wraiths being mobile mortars. I would say overall though that the Tau have better long-range options, with the Covenant favouring mid to short range. However, the elephant in the room is the Tau battlesuits. These battlesuits can go toe-to-toe with Space Marines, who are even more powerful than the Spartans from Halo, and whilst an energy sword would dice them up nicely, they are just way more powerful in general.
Well,
If
they
a
have
large
range,
force of
which is
Tau
huge.
battlesuits came in and flanked a Covenant force, that force would be screwed. Sure, Hunters could fuck up battlesuits pretty nicely, but Hunters are rare and come in packs of 2. Battlesuits can attack in their dozens or even hundreds. The Covenant would need to have elite zealots or stealth teams in reserve, ready to charge out with energy swords and close the gap with the battlesuits as soon as they would engage. So overall, their tech level is pretty similar. The Covenant have a few things the Tau don't, and the Tau have a few things the Covenant doesn't, notably battlesuits, but overall I'd say it's pretty close. Everything I've spoken about so far is pretty irrelevant though compared to my next point. What is the scale of the Covenant Empire versus the scale of the Tau Empire? Which is bigger? Who has more ships? Who has more warriors? At its peak, the Covenant Empire was massive. The lore states that it controlled the majority of the Orion Arm, which includes thousands of star systems. However, in saying that, its warrior castes, mostly the elites and brutes, barely had any other worlds outside of their homeworlds, so their numbers weren't insanely high. The elites because they were like feudal samurai, and the brutes because they were retarded. The Covenant also had thousands upon thousands of ships, although
The
in
grunts,
war
though,
you would
man.
only deploy a few.
I think grunts like reproduce like extremely quick, so it's like an infinite army glitch, if you want to put it that way. Like I think the grunts that you're fighting in the Halo games are basically like kids, which sounds pretty messed up, but they just age rapidly. But he's right though. Brutes and elites are definitely more of a rare breed, but there's still a shit ton of them though.
Few hundred at most. To take out Reach, the Covenant deployed 314 cruiser class or above ships, the largest single force humanity had ever seen, with the High Charity defense fleet being 500 ships in
Damn.
total. These fleets are absolutely massive, but they do also make up the bulk of the Covenant's focus fleets. Like sure, they have over 1,000 more, but they were spread out into patrols or escorts or defense or just anything like that. As for their military, the Covenant was actually quite underpopulated for how much of the galaxy they controlled. They didn't breed crazy fast like humans did, with numbers estimating to be in the hundreds of billions. This is why they weren't able to just steamroll humanity, who had around 40 billion humans when they first encountered the Covenant. They just didn't have the numbers to Zerg rush humanity until the war was won. Let's compare this to the Tau Empire, who control around 100 or so worlds clustered amongst a small area of the galaxy. You might instantly think the Tau are fucked here, but it's not that simple. They breed quite quickly, with each Tau world having billions of Tau on it. So in terms of raw population, they actually match or are not too far off matching the Covenant. Not to mention, Tau society is extremely efficient. When a Tau world is attacked, there isn't mass panic. The warriors come forth and the civilians get out of the way. To put it simply, though the population scale of both factions is actually quite similar, the Tau have less worlds, but they are closer together, whereas the Covenant Empire is more scattered, so they have a harder time concentrating their forces. To be honest, when I started making this video, I thought the Tau would be a clear winner in all categories due to 40k being 40k, but seeing them match the Covenant so closely in a lot of ways was super interesting. So let's now pit them in a hypothetical war to decide who comes out on top. Let's say the two faction empires encounter each other. The prophets think the Tau are cringe, so they declare them abominations.
Cringe, basically how it goes.
Extreme religious fundamentalism, already having learnt that lesson the hard way from dealing with humanity. The Covenant, being the more aggressive of the two, would attack hard and fast with extreme prejudice, a fleet of 300 ships rapidly attacking Tau space using their advanced slip space technology. The initial Tau fleets would be overwhelmed and taken out, as a number of Tau worlds would be invaded, cleansed, then glassed. The Covenant would be impressed with the Tau's tenacity, these outer worlds killing many Covenant warriors in their hastily pulled together defenses, with the battlesuits standing out as primary targets. However, here is where the deciding factor emerges. As the Covenant pushes onto the next Tower Worlds, they would use the same tactics: shock and awe, elite kill squads, hunter packs,
They
great
adapt.
cannon fodder, orbital superiority, just going balls to the walls. Meanwhile, the Tower would be constantly adapting. The Covenant is a religious fundamental empire. They do not adapt very quickly. When humanity brought out the Spartans, the Covenant didn't create a countermeasure. They just tried to throw their elite zealots at.
What's funny, actually, in lore, they actually did try to counter the Spartans with their own special like elites. I can't remember exactly, but it was like the special suits is put on them and like some different augmentations, but it was very, very few of them. Like there was a very, very minuscule amount of these warriors, and they had like a certain time duration they could be effective, almost like a drug they took or something. I can't remember exactly. You guys can look up the lore in that because you guys are way better hitting this stuff than I ever am. But I remember seeing something about it. But the Spartans are still far more elite just because of their longevity and their durability and whatnot like that, and etc. But the Covenant did try to make their own version of the Spartans, their own special elite force. It was made, it was there. I don't think anything came out of it though, but
them, which they would have done anyway. The Tau, however, would adapt. They would equip their battle suits and fire warriors with vision goggles that would unmask elite camouflage. They would update their shielding and armor to be resistant to the plasma pistol EMPing their battle suits. They would employ more fire units to incinerate the hunter packs. They would keep stealth suits in reserve for Covenant scarabs. The Tau ships are also faster than Covenant ships, hence there would be a lot of hit and run tactics, with heroes like Shadowsun leading boarding actions against the Covenant capital ships. Slowly, the tide of the war would turn as billions upon billions of Tau converged together against the brute force Covenant fleet. The Covenant would also bring in more reinforcements, but their ships would mostly come in ones or small groups from across their empire, not as a large unified force. The Tau's adaptability would be too much, and by the 5th or 6th Tau world, they would halt the Covenant advance and either destroy it or push it back. The war would be hectic and awesome, especially when elite zealots or brute chieftains would get amongst the Tau fire warriors in melee and just slaughter them. But it just wouldn't be enough. Put it like this: the UNSC, a pretty weak-ass human empire compared to the Imperium of Man, was able to resist the Covenant and eventually win the war. The Tau, on the other hand, have managed to hold back massive Imperial invasions that include Titans, thousands of Space Marines, and millions of soldiers, not to mention Psykers. If you threw those Imperials at the Covenant instead, they would crumble. The Master Chief was almost able to solo the Covenant. Imagine 1,000 Master Chiefs that are even more powerful getting involved. The Covenant is extremely awesome and surprisingly would give a much bigger fight to the Tau than you would think. But the Tau Empire's adaptability, unity, and battle suits, not to mention they can hold their own against factions much more powerful than the Covenant, would be too much for the Covenant. But fuck man, I would love to see the Sangheili join the Tau. Shit would be dope. New major mini idea perhaps. If you enjoyed the video,
that was really good, man. It's about the way I thought it was gonna go. The Covenant was just outclassed. I think a better comparison would be like Aatrox and the Banished, because I remember them saying that the Banished kicked the shit out of the Covenant. This could be a weaker Covenant, you know, it's fine, but still the Covenant. They kicked the shit out of the Covenant, almost destroyed humanity. So they went like right in the middle, just kicked the shit out of both factions. So I think that'd be a better comparison. Just by overall like military might and tactics, I think the Banished have it there. But of course, the Tau was just so many people. But it was a great video, man. It was great. It was a great comparison to break down each other's text, and even to put like a simulated battle too was really cool. So, but like always, please check him out in the description. Make sure you guys subscribe and like his video. He does a phenomenal job in every video I've ever watched from him. If you guys enjoy my content, if you guys enjoy my reactions, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.